Minnesota at a rally in Philadelphia. Also campaigning in Philly today was Republican Vice Presidential hopeful J.D. Vance, who made a request of the media.
I think that you guys have got to do a better job at actually forcing Kamala Harris to answer questions. This is a person who's been the presumptive Democrat nominee for 16 days. She hasn't taken a single real question from a reporter. The American people deserve to get to know the people who want to lead them, and I think it's shameful for Kamala Harris, but increasingly for the media, that she's taking a basement strategy of running from reporters instead of getting in front of them, answering tough questions about her record, and letting the American people know who she is. President Trump and I take hostile questions, we take non-hostile questions.
He said Governor Tim Walz's record is a joke, as he's been one of the most far-left radicals in the entire United States government at any level. A conservative activist says President Joe Biden and his counterpart in Venezuela love to lie about statistics for political propaganda. Here's AFN's Chad Groening with an explanation.
Robert Knight is a columnist for the Washington Times. His latest column is entitled, "The Numbers Don't Lie, Except When They Do." In it, he exposed how President Joe Biden has manipulated statistics in order to mislead the public.
Speaking of false statistics, President Biden keeps insisting that when he took office, he inherited 9% inflation from President Trump. And inflation was 1.4% in 2021 in January when Trump left office. 1.4%. And Biden drove it up past 9% with his attack on America's energy industry, fossil fuels in particular.
Knight also mentioned what he believes were the false numbers in the recent presidential election in Venezuela.
Dictator Nicolas Maduro claimed to have won 51% to 42%, when an audit by the opposition shows he probably lost by 6.2 million votes to 2.7 million to the opposition candidate, Bondo Gonzalez. Even the United States State Department, which hasn't been the greatest force for anti-communism in recent years, proclaimed that they believe Mr. Gonzalez was the winner, not Mr. Maduro.
I'm Chad Groening.
At a White House press briefing, Fox's David Spun asked White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre why the public hasn't seen much of President Joe Biden as tensions rise between Israel and Iran.
Here's the thing. You have seen the president. He has been very clear about making sure that we continue to try to de-escalate tensions.
Stocks rose on Wall Street as calm returned to the market today after its worst drop in nearly 2 years. Strong profit reports from Uber and other companies helped support the market. The Dow was up 294, the S&P 53, and the Nasdaq 166. That's all our time for now. You can find more news online at afn.net. I'm Robert Thornton.
Our God is not a conglomeration of doctrines and dogmas for us to memorize. No, God is a person. We have the opportunity to know him, and he has revealed himself to us through his own Son, Jesus Christ.
Join Dr. David Jeremiah for his series in Ephesians, Belief That Behaves, next time on Turning Point.
5:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. Central on American Family Radio.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media
and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. And I have to tell you, I was wrong. I thought, I know the Democrat Party is filled with lots of wickedness at the highest levels, but I thought they would still attempt to make a prudent play to at least give the appearance that electoral politics still matters to them, to give them enough room to, secure the election. Yet, they say, who needs swing state votes from electoral votes in Arizona? Who needs electoral votes from the swing state of Pennsylvania, which, by the way, has 19 electoral votes? Nah. Let's go on and show just how socialist we are, how committed we are. Let's go with the governor of the true blue home of some people did some things, Ilhan Omar, to be at the top of the ticket. Oh, don't let the folksy patois fool you. Don't let the, oh, shucks, down-home Midwestern former teacher fool you. The man is a socialist. And you're not going to have to take my word for it. I'm going to show you him saying it in his own words. The governor of Minnesota had served 12 years in Congress before becoming a two-term governor of the blue state of Minnesota. And it's just so interesting. This is the same governor who presided over the changing of the Minnesota state flag to look a little bit more like the Somalian national flag. Oh, yes. Go ahead and look that up while you're wondering about it. This is him, folks. Nevertheless, I'm grateful that you tuned into the program. Abraham Hamilton III is my name, joined by the corner contingent right across from me, my man, 100 grand, Mr. Bobby Rosa. He's pulling up the Somalian flag. / Minnesota flag, by the way. Producer extraordinaire, the real J Mac, often imitated, never duplicated, is in the screening room. And he informed me, for those of you who like to tune into the program via the tube of you, that we live, baby. And we're ready to rock and roll with today's edition of the program. At this very moment, many of you, if not most of you, are making your transition from your part-time jobs, where you generate an income, to your full-time jobs, where you cultivate an outcome. And I want to encourage you to do so with intentionality and understanding of the primacy that God places on family. Look at what's happening around us. And I've said before, you only vote for socialism once. Our nation is on the exact same trajectory that Venezuela has been on, that Venezuela was on. And now, though the people of Venezuela want to be liberated from Nicolas Maduro, just look where they are. We are on the exact same trajectory. It's the same old playbook, rinse and repeat. The same old thing that's been employed all over the world has now come to our own shores. And this is why we must have families, we must have homes, we must have neighborhoods, we must have communities that are fortified sufficiently that we will be able to stand firmly and also beat back darkness in our immediate vicinity. To the Word of God, we're going to go today, 1 Chronicles chapter 9. There are two verses I want to point out there where you have the recording of the true division of labor amongst the Levitical priesthood. You enjoying that over there, Bobby? The division of labor of the Levitical priesthood. And there's a principle there that underscores something we say repeatedly, but it's amazing how the Word of God is so refreshing, and it gives us great clarity, especially during tumultuous times. 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verses 33 and 34. As I mentioned, the chronicler is addressing the division of labor and an accounting of the functions within the Levitical priesthood. And then we have this little jewel provided right in the middle of that discourse for our benefit. Verse 33. Now these are the singers, heads of fathers' households of the Levites, who lived in the chambers of the temple, free from other service. They were engaged in their work night and day and night. These were heads of fathers' households of the Levites, according to their generations, chief men who lived in Jerusalem. Isn't it amazing? It's remarkable to me that the scripture shows us that you had a contingent of Levites who lived in the chambers of the temple. So these are rooms along the outside that later, unfortunately, were used by corrupt priests leading up to the time of Josiah in Judah, where they turned them really into prostitution, shrine prostitutes, and things of that nature. But originally, there were areas in the temple complex specifically designated not just for Levites, but particularly for the singers, who had responsibility concerning worship and other duties in the temple day and night. There's clearly a a principle that should govern those who would aid the body of Christ now in worshiping concerning their skill as well as devotion. Just because you like to sing doesn't mean you should. There is a requisite of excellence and skill. But the broader point I want to illustrate is to consider that you have a segment of a people whose life course, whose life dedication is to sing psalms, hymns, praise, and spiritual songs to the Lord. But this is their primary function daily. It just underscores the reality of what we say all the time, that worship is a lifestyle. And one of the major reasons why I'm presenting this now is because I want you to know, standing fast in the faith in 21st century America, standing firm for the faith in 21st century America, refusing to be intimidated by an antichrist culture and refusing to be intimidated by a society that would tell you, for now, we'll tolerate your faith as long as you keep it to yourself, is a part of worship. I always describe worship as a lifestyle intentionally because it is a lifestyle that includes many different iterations of activities that are worshipful. But ultimately, worship is to be the way that we live. Confronting wickedness is an aspect of worship. Contending for truth is an aspect of worship. Refusing to be deceived is an aspect of worship. Ministering to the deceived is another aspect of worship. There has been great deception fomented in our country. Great deception. This is a part of the reason why I refer to the talking snake media as the talking snake media, because these people lie for profit. They lie for profit. And they will lie and continue to lie. I don't mean everybody, but largely, our legacy media does nothing but lie and propagate narratives as they are allied with efforts to assert governmental control over the populace. There are some, and I agree with being, let me say it this way, communicating successfully. But you have some who would try to say, you need to be winsome, you need to be winsome. Really when their ultimate objective is really just to get you to shut up. Really to get you just, don't talk so much. Don't talk so much about abortion. Don't talk so much about these things. They're just divisive. Listen, remember, guys, the call of Christ for unity is not a generalized unity. The Lord, through the Apostle Paul, said the believer is to give all diligence to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace, not a generalized human unity. Never forget, men can unify in rebellion. Genesis 11. There was a lot of unity at the Tower of Babel. Unified to construct an edifice celebrating disobedience to the Almighty God. The Lord doesn't call us to a general proposition of unity. Unity has an object. Unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. This is a bond of peace that is first satisfied vertically, to where the wrath of God that is revealed upon mankind because of his sinfulness. It is because of man's sinfulness that we need a Savior that satisfies the hostility between God and man because of sinfulness, because God is holy and cannot endure and will not endure sinfulness. That vertical peace creates the foundation for the body of Christ to enjoy horizontal peace. And our submission and obedience to the Lord's word also is a feature of worship. This picture of the Old Testament Levites, a segment of them, having residence in the temple, foreshadows the lifestyle of worship that we are to live in the New Testament context. When the scripture says things to us like, for all that we do, we should do heartily as unto the Lord. Our work ethic is a feature of worship. Our respect for one another is a feature of worship. Our respect for fellow image bearers is a feature of worship. You can respect someone and nevertheless vehemently disagree with them. We do so respectfully. We do so without attempting to be personally denigrating, but we nevertheless do so resolutely. This is a feature of worship. So my point in saying all of this is that you don't have to separate yourself from your vertical vocation, your vertical commitment to the King of Glory, to be his hands and feet in the here and now. We don't have to separate the two. There's no chasm between loving the Lord with all that we are and serving him with all that we are. The reason why we engage vigorously is because we love him with all that we are. But we must never forget the motivation. If we're not careful, and this can happen in anybody, we can get so consumed in contending for the faith that we allow our heart conditions to become contentious. That is not the will of God for us. But if we see ourselves leaning a bit further into the contentious realms, what we do is humble ourselves and repent. Welcome the Lord to correct our hearts. Then we get back on the field, man. Then we get back on the field. A lot of the ways that we've arrived where we are now. Oh, they just want a little of this. They just want a little of that. I've explained to you guys about the Hegelian dialectical process. I chuckled because coming in, some people were saying in the studio, oh, yeah. Some folks are saying that Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, he's a centrist. The center of what? Based on what scale? Oh, he's to the right of Stalin? Like, come on, man. This is ridiculous. And we have firmly entered the time period where it's no longer the conventional discussions of right and left. We have entered the place where it is truly evident that it is evil versus good. It is evil versus righteousness. That's the truth. There's no middle ground of compromise between somebody who wants to tell me they want to cut off my baby boy's genitalia. There's no reasonable middle ground. There's no reasonable middle ground for people who want to sterilize children. There's no reasonable middle ground for that. There's no reasonable middle ground with people who want to say they want to use the government to confiscate my ability to leave an inheritance tangibly and naturally for my children's children and redistribute it. There's no middle ground there. There's no middle ground with people who have expressed their desire to force any who disagree with them into re-education camps. And these same people want to say, well, you should be stripped of your Second Amendment rights to protect yourself against them. We'll be just like the Venezuelans. There's no compromise there. So what I'm telling you, that we don't have to have a disposition of a refusal to compromise with evil that is detached from our commitment to worship our King. The Lord tells us in Ephesians 5:11, for the believer, we are to have nothing to do, no fellowship, no participation with the unfruitful works of darkness, rather expose them. We don't compromise with evil. We contend for and contend with truth.
A Discipleship Minute with Joseph Parker.
How tragic it is when people who say they love Jesus will see the need, see the problems, for whatever reason, pass by on the other side. Sometimes people may think, well, it's not my problem and I don't want to be a victim like he was. Well, that's a wrong perspective. Some may think, well, I'm busy. I've got other things to do. Well, it's easy to say everybody's busy. Everybody has something to do. But by the grace of God, we see where God commended the Samaritan. He too had something to do, but he took time. He made time to stop and help with compassion someone who'd been beat up and left for dead on the side of the road by the world. You and I need to make time to live a life of compassion. We're called to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ in the world. How important it is that we're faithful to do that. This is what we're made for.
Our teens are becoming soul winners with the help of the Truth for Youth Bible.
Hi, I teach in a high school, and I just want to say thank you for the Truth for Youth Bibles. A youth group in our area was passing them out, and one young lady said she wanted to give a Bible to a particular person that she knew would not receive it. Not only did that person receive it, they were thankful for it and promised to read it. It was by the end of that day that that person committed their life to Christ.
Over the last 20 years, more than 1 million Truth for Youth Bibles have been given to youth all over America. And this year, we want to add at least 60,000 to that total. It's available in English and Spanish, and every student between the ages of 13 and 18 can get one free if they promise to give it to a friend at school. Call 844-530-8890. That's 844-530-8890 between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Central, or visit tfy.org anytime.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten.
Without Trinity's support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. Abraham Hamilton III here. So as I said, I was wrong. I thought wisdom would prevail over, how shall we describe it? Demonic sycophancy? But I guess I was wrong. So Cackling Kamala Harris has nominated, what do you want to cry? Declared Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her vice presidential pick for the Democrat ticket. Just to give you some of his greatest hits, this is the same Tim Walz, I told you, who has a 12-year career in Congress. Served 2 years, he's a second-term Minnesota governor. So what I'm sharing with you is not anecdotal, whatever. The man has a record. And as though he tries to come off with a folksy Midwestern all shucks persona, the man is a rabid socialist by his own declaration. A rabid socialist, out and out socialist. He's the same governor that employed massively draconian lockdowns in Minnesota, shut down, all of they shut down their economy entirely, shut down their school system, had extreme mask mandates. I'm going to play in a moment for you how he enacted a system very similar to China's social credit score system, to where he issued a stay-at-home order due to Schmovid, and asked for Minnesotans to call this hotline to tattle on their neighbors. If they saw their neighbors, if they saw their neighbors not complying with his lockdown orders. His time in the governor's office was followed by a rapid increase in the crime rate in the state of Minnesota. Yes, he's the same guy that put menstrual products in men's restrooms and all in government facilities and buildings all throughout the whole state. His state has some of the most radical baby murder policies in the nation. I know there's some people that will, get upset about this. His is one state with, yes, post-delivery murder occurs. 5 or 6 per year, actually, under state law. It's absurd. Radically supportive of the entire, sexual deviancy political agenda. He is a radical socialist. In fact, let's start there. Here for yourself. You know what? Remember when I told you guys, just because someone says, "Oh shucks, I'm a socialist, but I'm the kind, gentle version." I'm the Bernie Sanders Democratic Socialist. Don't just focus on the socialists. I know that's what Republicans want to do. Don't just focus on the socialists. But remember the Democratic, the party of the people. Well, by the way, just gave the old heave-ho to a candidate that just realized it wasn't working for them. And put another one in place who's installed who didn't get one vote. But we're socialists, but we're Democratic. Tim Walz has a remix on that thing. You know, he put the Harlem Shake remix on it. He's a neighborly socialist. Get ready for that one. This is a very short clip, but listen to him. See, Democrats need to be proud of their progressive policy. Yeah, we may be socialist, but when one man's socialism is another man's neighborliness. Clip number 1. Go.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
See? Don't ever shy away from progressive. That's one of the most amazing oxymorons. It's almost like LGBTQ conservative, oxymoron. Progressive values, oxymoron. What is the value of progressivism? Massive poverty, impoverishment, death, not figuratively, literally. Just do the research. Everywhere it's been tried. You can go to Stalin's Russia. You'll use Lenin to get a Trotsky, and then you got to exile Trotsky and have him murdered, as well as the 30-some-odd million plus that you kill. Mao's Cultural Revolution, China, Fidel Castro with the butcher, Che Guevara, which is still laughable to me, all the people run around with Che Guevara shirts. The man is a mass murderer. That's who he is. He's not anybody that should get any accolades from civilized people. Hugo Chavez is Venezuela, followed by Nicolas Maduro today, even though you have evidence that he just lost the recent presidential election to the tune of between 6 and 10 million votes. He said, no, I got 51% of the votes. Well, you can do that when you got all the guns. You got all the soldiers on payroll. And what do you think is going to happen here? First, you already have the blood sacrifice to Molech. 60+ million babies and counting. Combine that with the massive regressive policies. And people don't like to talk about this. But you see the massive amounts of murder? They almost always are overwhelmingly in cities run by Democrats. My hometown in New Orleans ain't had nothing but Democrat mayors for over a century. City council, all Democrats. In fact, in my hometown, I never saw a local candidate run as a Republican for anything until I was an adult and asked me, did any Republicans win anything? No, the only question is, are you Democrat or are you Democrat? And it's like that in metropolitan areas all over our country. And so let's ask this question. When you think about the cities in our nation that are run and have been run exclusively by Democrats, what do you think is going to happen if the federal government becomes exclusively run by Democrats? Huh? Hey, what about when Bill Clinton was president? Oh, we had divided government. Bill Clinton presided over a Republican Congress. Isn't that something? What couldn't be construed as financial successes under Bill Clinton, it wasn't because of Bill Clinton, it was in spite of him. Back to Tim Walz, the same ones. I told you, this is Lockdown Tim. He locked down Tim. You can call him, Tampon Tim. He implemented a policy that started a recording line to have Minnesotans tattling on their neighbor if they did not comply with Tim Walz's lockdown orders. Listen to, watch and listen, clip number 2. Go.
Hello, you have reached the Department of Public Safety stay-at-home hotline. The information you leave is considered public information. At the tone, please leave the following information: your name, your callback number, how the stay-at-home order is being violated, and where the stay-at-home order was violated. Thank you.
Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Tell us all about it. Tell us all about it. Tell us how your neighbor is violating the stay-at-home order, and tell us where it's being violated. And hey, we'll take it from there. Hey, I want to come and have a conversation. I want to talk to you. I want to have a conversation. Hey, don't worry. It's not gonna hurt too much. Guys, this is who this man is. This is who this man is. This is the same man who was eager to sign legislation to give illegal aliens driver's licenses. And then I heard some people that try to play like they don't understand what's going on. Well, what's the big idea with driver's licenses, Abe? Of course, you're using the driver's license to allow them to vote in elections in the state. Listen to and watch clip number 3. Tim Walz celebrating it's done. Go.
It's done.
A packed room at the St. Paul Armory erupted after the governor's signature made driver's license for all the law of the land.
You heard that chant in the end? I don't think that chant was in English. Because it wasn't. It was in Spanish. Yeah. And no shade to the Spanish speakers. My wife speaks Spanish. But my wife was a U.S. citizen. I don't mind you speaking Spanish. My problem is you crossing our border illegally and then demanding the full rights and privileges of the U.S. citizenry when you're not a citizen. You introduced yourself to our country by breaking our laws. And then you're going to force capitulation to accommodate you. And she'll say, is that real? Yes, ma'am, it's real. It's real. It's real in the battlefield. Oh, boy. And I just pulled out my trusty, electoral map. You're watching, I'm putting it up in the camera so you can see it right now. My trusty, dusty electoral map. Because the reality is, in our constitutional republic, we do not have the direct election of the U.S. president. We have representative election of the president. The Electoral College, the number of electoral votes per state corresponds with the number of Congress members per state. You look at any electoral predictions, Minnesota is a consistent blue state. But then you have toss-up states like Nevada and Arizona and, this one, Pennsylvania. Bobby, help me remember. Was there a potential vice presidential pick from Pennsylvania? That's where you used to live. No, you were in Virginia. Like Bobby said, don't insult me that way. No shade. I love Pennsylvania. We have some wonderful listeners and supporters there. Oh, and guess, Minnesota has 10 electoral college votes, but Pennsylvania has 19. So you would think, if you want to win the election, wouldn't you want to get someone who could help carry a swing state? Nah. Let's get Comrade Walz. Let's go with Comrade Walz. And it makes you think, so why wouldn't you go with Mark Kelly in Arizona? And why wouldn't you go with John Shapiro? Hey, don't ask me. I ain't a Democrat. Let Van Jones talk to you. Van Jones has something to say on the matter. It's clip number 4. Go.
Do you think it was a little risky, though, Van, that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind of lock down Pennsylvania? I mean, yes, David Challenger was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define him. So here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party? So that's going to have to get worked out. It's going to have to get talked through.
It's going to have to get worked out. It's going to have to be talked through. Oh, we just have a little anti-Semitism that's marbling into the party. You know, it's just a statement. It's like Wagyu beef. You know, it's well marbled. The marbling is through and through. So even though we have the reality of Hamas slaughtering innocent people October 7th, an entire powder keg in the Middle East that follows the October 7th slaughter, and you have the prospect of the U.S. being dragged into a war in the Middle East, yet the Democrat nominee for the presidency is just going to, we'll yield a little bit to the, just the marbled anti-Semitism in the party. What's a few Nazis and Islamo terrorists between us, Hee-haw donkeys, you know what I mean? Guys, this is real. This is not a dream. You're not dreaming. You're awake. You're awake. This is where we are. Tim Walz is an open border radical. As I mentioned, he's a socialist. He's a redistribution of wealth kind of guy. Inflation. I'm just your neighbor, friendly neighborhood socialist. And the thing that's most puzzling to me is I really want to know, does it really not bother Democrats anymore? Democrat voters? That your party is going full-fledged socialist? Like, full-fledged. This nomination, Tim Walz, confirms that. Because Cackling Kamala, full-on socialist. I mean, all the way down to the disdain for human life. If you're going to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. Even the Infant Born Alive Act, she voted against in Congress. Tim Walz is right along with her. And that all it simply says, if an abortion is attempted and the baby survives, you can't just let the baby die. You got to give the baby life-affirming care. Nah, it's not good enough for them. Tim Walz is right along with her. Confiscation of private property, the full socialist scope. But it's going to be presented initially as, it's neighborliness. Well, just neighborly. I haven't seen very many Democrats upset about the fact that the Democrat Party doesn't really seem to care about their Democratic participation. And they seem to be all the rage with having the American versions of Che Guevara, Hugo Chavez, and their early ilks.
Every day, AFA offers biblical insight on issues that others aren't willing to touch in the hopes that you'll become a world changer. That's why we're offering an in-depth worldview training course called Activate. 13 different professors teaching 18 sessions, all available online, including a printed workbook to help you apply what you've learned and 1-year access to AFA streaming content to give you even more resources. Find out more about Activate and sign up today at activate.afa.net.
Hello, I'm Don Hawkins, here to tell you about Encouragement Live. 55 minutes of industrial-strength radio encouragement featuring resourceful guests, plus practical biblical insights to help you face life's challenges. We'll be taking your phone calls, so plan to join us for Encouragement Live, Saturdays at 7:05 p.m. Central, 8:05 p.m. Eastern, here on American Family Radio.
Shepherds for Sale. This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. False teachers don't wear red suits and carry pitchforks. Far more effective for undermining the church, diverting believers, and hiding the gospel from unbelievers is for false teachers to hold respected positions at churches and Christian organizations. In her explosive new book, Shepherds for Sale, journalist Megan Basham exposes how the political left is drawing evangelicals over to their side by giving large sums of money and reframing issues with language that appeals to Christians. Jesus warned, "Beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves." Hear our most recent program with Megan Basham at thechristianworldview.org, and then join us this weekend for another topic that will sharpen your worldview.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that is MediShare. And maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for health care can save many families up to $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works, too. It's been around for 30 years. Members have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. See what you can save. This is a very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Join us for the second annual AFA at the Ark.
Myself and Tony Ventagliano, his family, and my family, and several of the other staff members at AFA.
Tickets include transportation from the hotel to the museums, both tours, and special presentations by Answers in Genesis speakers. AFA has reserved a block of rooms at a discounted price with the Marriott Cincinnati Airport Hotel. To register, go to afa.net/events and join us for AFA at the Ark.
The Hamilton Corner podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. Abraham Hamilton III here. I'm presenting this information to you for several reasons. One, so you can be armed with the information to share with your friends and family and neighbors and loved ones so they can be aware. Because as you saw happen, as soon as Kamala Harris was installed, then the propaganda machine went into overtime saying, borders are? What borders are? A border? No, Harris border? No. That was never a thing. No. Right? No border. No, not her. No. Oh, that's a Republican. That's a right-wing conspiracy. Yeah, kind of just like, and you know Joe Biden is too feeble to do the job. You do know that, right? No, he's fit as a fiddle. Joe Biden is the best he's ever been. And then the debate happens, and y'all know the rest of the story. Secondarily, and most importantly, I'm sharing this with you so you can assess where we are within the unfolding biblical narrative so that you can both pray and engage with the gospel and commit ever the more to making disciples. See, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. As I started off saying, that all of these are various features of our vertical worship commitment. It's not one or the other. All right? Have nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, rather expose them. All right? You have the shield and you have the sword. You got to use them both. All right? Now, continuing on. This is just so hilarious. Now, Bobby and Jeff, y'all can just help me. Didn't we just have a whole soiree with, election denial and all of these things? I mean, let's prosecute Trump, string him up. You have, well, she should never be president. He's illegitimate. Oh no, we don't election deny over here, even though Stacey Abrams is our favorite. And all of that. Well, what's going on? Not too much. Just, Congressman Jaimie Raskin from Maryland. I almost didn't recognize him because he didn't have his do-rag on. He always normally rocking his do-rag. I go way back like the wave cap, He didn't have his do-rag on. He was suited in the boot in his tuxedo. And he was discussing the Supreme Court's decision concerning state efforts to disqualify former President Trump from the ballot. And this dude just straight up said, if Trump wins the election in November, it's just up to us in Congress. We just have to disqualify him. Guys, I wish I was kidding. I know you wish I was kidding. This is exactly what he said, and I'm going to play it for you right now. It is clip number 5. Go.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new center so we can bring that.
It really strikes me how casual these people say these extreme things. It's similar to, remember I told you guys, not all climate zealots are depopulationists, but it turns out all depopulationists happen to be climate zealots. You get what I'm saying? There's some people who rage about, the climate change. They're not necessarily saying, we got to kill a couple billion people, but we'll do it morally. But all depopulationists just so happen to also be climate zealots. And so these depopulationists just casually say, the world, we just have too many people. So what's your proposed solution to the notion of too many people? There were once ovens. Here you have a sitting congressman who, as the backdrop and context for the conversation, is his disapproval of the Supreme Court. He said not all 9 justices. Well, Congressman Raskin, there's this thing that's called reading. That's fundamental. And the decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that concluded that states do not have the authority to use Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to disqualify a president from the ballot. Those decisions were unanimous, sir. They were unanimous. So that would be all 9, just in case you don't recall what unanimous means. But then he goes on to say that, and it'll just come to January 6th. Now, didn't they just have all these committees talking about January? It'll come to January 6th, and though the American people would have voted for Trump, and he called them the MAGA mobs, and it'll just come to Congress. We just have to let him know he's disqualified. Excuse me? And then he casually says, did you hear this? And we'll just have to get security with the smirk. I like to joke. I like a good time. I mean, I crack a, I like to, I like to yuck it up. But I don't think civil war is anything to joke about. This man literally said, and we'll have to have security. And then we'll have to have, being a civil war mind frame. Whoa, time out. Stop the presses. What? Guys, at some point, people have to have to wake up. Remember the old expression, wake up and smell the coffee? These people say all these things. Trump was a dictator. Trump gets elected. That'll be the end of election. All this kind of, it was like, wait. Wasn't he already president? Did he do any of that stuff then? No. So why do you think he's going to do it now? Oh, because they don't. They just want to scare you. Now, on the other hand, what do they want to do? Well, I want to play it again because I want you to hear this for yourself. This is Congressman Jaimie Raskin. This is January 6th committee member Jaimie Raskin. This is, Orange Man Bad, Jaimie Raskin. And he's just conveniently and smirkingly saying, they may elect him, but it's going to come down to us in Congress. We'll disqualify him, and then we'll just be Civil War ready. Play it. Crazy.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new center so we can bring that.
Guys, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. This is just wild. This is just wild. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, and I should have explained that. Like, all right, let's reading is fundamental, Congressman Raskin. What is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? It is a Reconstruction-era amendment, particularly promulgated against Confederates from the South who had just participated in waging war against the United States of America, all right? And it disqualifies from federal office those who have been insurrectionists, that famous word, which is a legal term. It's not just, it's a term that has legal meaning and implication. Mr. Trump has not been charged with insurrection, nor has anyone been charged with insurrection. And then he just casually says Congress will declare him disqualified. By what mechanism, sir? By what means? And you're just going to just hang out and just kick it, put your do-rag back on, and then, sip some pina coladas until January 6th and be like, oh, we know you guys might have elected him, but so he said, yeah, we'll just get security and we'll be ready. We'll be Civil War ready. Guys, that's not cool. That's not something that should be casually, and they're just all sitting around here like, yeah, well, yeah. And you have, not only you have the Constitution itself, then you have a unanimous Supreme Court that ruled. And yet here you have Congressman Raskin. Guys, we similar to what I said earlier, that I wonder how many Democrat voters actually care about having the in the shadows Democrat Party elites, and it's not so shadowy, We know about Obama. We know about Susan Rice. We know about Anthony Blinken. We know about, all of these people. We know about Nancy Pelosi, who wants Joe Biden about Rushmore. I mean, this lady doesn't believe that. She does not believe it. Well, let me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe she does believe it. I don't believe she believes it, but that's not going to stop her from saying it. That's why Leslie Stahl was like, wait, Abraham Lincoln, Joe Biden, they gonna be next to each other? Well, maybe not next to Lincoln, but Teddy Roosevelt. And I'm not saying take one down. I'm saying we got to add Joe, the same one you just helped give the heave-ho overboard from the re-election campaign. So Tara says, Abe, those voters don't care, and that's concerning to me. That's concerning to me. That's the problem. Are we truly at the place? And you have some people who are unfortunately, they're so easily duped by lying media that they allow the media to just cause them to it's just, they despise the persona of Trump so much so that you're willing to say, okay, we don't like him, but let's have the socialist. Like, really? Really? That's wild, man. That's wild. That's wild. And I know the audience here, and you guys are some of the most informed people in the country. You're some of the most informed people in the country. And we have a pretty significant audience here. But the significance of this audience is not the entirety of the American populace. I will never forget how when you had a survey of thousands of people who represented themselves of having voted for Mr. Biden in the 2020 election, they had no clue that Hunter Biden's laptop existed. They had no clue. When they were informed about the laptop, they said, there's no way we would have voted for him if we would have known this. And my response is, in this age of technology and information being so readily available, why don't we know? And what the reality is bread and circus. Which is why it is a fool's errand for people who are, and this is some free advice for the Republican Party. It's a fool's errand for the RNC to just abandon any effort to try to influence the nation culturally. Because what ends up happening, ultimately, using the influences of cultural levers, they apply Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals and present their lying narratives as if they are morally superior, project those who would oppose their narratives as evil, and then endeavor to normalize their narrative with kind of a cultural hegemony to where they're not functioning off of information, they're operating based off of caricatures and stereotypes. And that's what we have by and large. You have lots of people, they're not going to know anything about Kamala Harris's policies. All they're going to know is chucks and pearls. They're not going to know anything about Tim Walz's socialism. They're going to just know about his neighborliness. Because that's, just mark it down. They're going to present this guy as the all shucks, good old boy. You can sit across from him and have lunch together. Man, you can play cards together. Just like a relative. They ain't going to tell you anything about his universal basic income desires, his socialized health care, his elimination of your private health insurance, his desire to jack your taxes through the roof, his desire to continue to slaughter innocent children, to maim and to mangle and to sterilize babies in the name of transgender insanity and ideology. They're going to say any of that. And you're going to have the aggressors saying, oh, he's a centrist. You got to wake up, man. I didn't say man, I said man. Like I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. Wake up, man.